Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the MidBeach Neighborhood Association's monthly meeting. MBNA represents condominiums and hotels from 24th Street to 63rd Street along Collins Avenue and Indian Creek Drive. We hold monthly meetings on the first Wednesday of each month from January to June, then again from September to November, allowing for folks to take the summer break off and for our hotel members to take time to focus on the art season or Art Basel and the busy end of the year season at their properties. We welcome you to our second to last meeting for 2023. Today's agenda will review some new improvements in the MidBeach area, such as the dog park that was suggested by residents that live near 37th Street and Collins Avenue. We'll also discuss Miami Beach Drive. And if you've seen the website and some of our social media posts, we've talked a little bit about the history of Miami Beach Drive. We've had it on our agendas in the past. And in January, we heard from the city on the item. And thanks to Commissioner Alex Fernandez, we were able to convene the properties as well as the city stakeholders. And it was determined that it is a city asset. And so we'll hear today a little bit of an update on that project. Another project that is on today's agenda that has been heard many times at MBNA is the Indian Creek pedestrian pathway. And that is a pathway that when first proposed to the commission at committee, really only detailed 4 blocks of the entire pathway. And then MBNA really felt that this was another asset in our community. We'd like to see it extended from 25th all the way to 41st, providing true connection and reducing the amount of nodes or spaces that would encourage individuals experiencing homelessness to gather or for other illicit behaviors to occur. And then our last main item for today is about the properties that are in despair here in the MidBeach area. We've received several comments and have had some meetings in between our large membership meetings discussing the properties, again, between 24th and 31st that are of concern to the community. And we'd like to better understand where they are with the building department in terms of permits, with the code enforcement department in terms of violations, and the police department in terms of safety. And so we'll hear from everyone. But before we do, let me provide a warm welcome and introduce our other board members. I'm Ana Marie Ferreira de Melo. I'm the president of the MidBeach Neighborhood Association. I have here Deborah Lake, the vice president. Deborah.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm in a really loud spot. Good seeing you, Alex, again for the second time today.
Thank you, Deborah. And Deborah also chairs our public space committee that is overseeing the Miami Beach Drive's or MBNA's involvement in the Miami Beach Drive project, as well as the dog park. Justin Jacobs, our treasurer.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Justin. Thanks for joining us. We have our hotel members, Jose Flores from The Addition.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jose. Michelle Redlick, representing the Fontainebleau.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
Thank you, Michelle. Esteban Porcelli, who is the representative of MBNA on the city's transportation, pedestrian, parking facilities. I believe it's transportation, parking facilities, and pedestrian bicycle, et cetera, committee, as well as our chair of the Indian Creek Drive. Esteban, are you here?
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Sorry for hearing that, Esteban. I'm sure you'll do a better introduction when we get to your items. And today, 2 of our board members that are unable to be with us today is Oscar Vasquez, who chairs our Beach and Water Quality working group, and Alicia Casanova, who's our ex officio board member and chairs the Collins North Avenue working group, as well as the Beach Walk working group. Justin Jacobs is also the chair of the South Collins working group. So today we decided to focus on all of our items are on that southern portion of the MidBeach Neighborhood Association's boundaries, which is 24th to 41st Street. Now, thank you, board members. I'd like to introduce any elected officials that have joined us today. Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. It's always a pleasure to join this great group, always a catalyst of great ideas and initiatives. And right behind me is my wonderful aide, my right hand, Monica Mateo Salinas, who makes sure that all the good work gets done on your behalf. So thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to join you.
Thank you so much for being here. And for everyone who joined us last month or didn't have an opportunity, we do have the meeting recorded and posted as a candidate forum for all of those running for office, both the mayoral and commission candidate seats. It was a great discussion. I think we really were able to get a sense of each of the candidates' positions and personalities and what their leadership styles would be if they were awarded the opportunity to serve our community in those roles. So thank you, Commissioner Fernandez, for being with us. And I do see a representative, Commissioner Eileen Higgins' office is here with us. Danny Reyes.
Hi, folks. I'm Danny Reyes. Thank you for inviting me and being part of this meeting.
Thank you. And Danny, please remind our members, what is your role with Commissioner Higgins' office?
Yeah, I am the Miami Beach coordinator for Commissioner Eileen Higgins of District 5. I am on the beach twice a week at City Hall, Mondays and Wednesdays, 9 to 5. And I cover all the issues in Miami Beach. So if you need something, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'll put my contact information on the chat.
Thank you so much. And just as a reminder, Eileen Higgins is a county commissioner. So we are in the county of District 5, while Commissioner Alex Fernandez is one of our city commissioners. City of Miami Beach, we don't have districts, and unfortunately, in my opinion, I wish I had a commissioner that was have our MidBeach commissioner. That would be wonderful. Okay, so jumping to our first item, we are going to move towards the dog park on 37th Street. Do we have representatives here from the city's Parks Department? And if I missed anyone, please feel free to raise your hand.
Yes, hi, good morning. Good afternoon. Elizabeth Esteves, work for the Parks and Recreation Department. I'm the Capital Projects Manager. I'm here on behalf of Jose. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. He's out of town, so he asked me to fill in for him. So hopefully I can do as good a job as he does when he comes over on these meetings. So I guess just to give a brief overview. So the dog park project has been placed in our 5-year capital plan in the Parks Department. We've currently placed it for funding in FY26. It can be funded sooner, but that's up to commission to decide when to approve funding for it. Because commission has to determine the priority for all improvements and capital projects required, for the city. Commission is also considering other uses for the green space that's being proposed for the dog park as well. I think it's also being considered for future padel or pickleball, but nothing has been put into concrete. This is currently not a park space. It's a green space, so it's not an official park, and it's currently the responsibility or an asset of the green space department. But if this project is approved and we put a dog park on there, we're happy to take this on and make it one of our facilities. The dog park is going to be comparable to the newly constructed dog park that we installed at Allison Park just recently. And so the scope of work or amenities that we've accounted for as we prepared our budget was new picket fencing with a separation for small and large dogs, a chilled drinking fountain with a doggy bowl dispenser, benches, trash and recycle bins, doggy bag dispenser, new sodding, new irrigation, and new landscaping. So that's all I pretty much have, and I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Thanks so much. And is it Elizabeth or is it Liz?
It's Elizabeth, but you can call me Liz.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. And so is it 30? There's some chatter. Is it 36 or 37th in Collins?
I guess it's somewhere around there. I think it's 35th in Collins, like the corner. That would be, I guess, like the southwest corner, and it probably runs from 35th to possibly 36th.
Okay.
It's in that space where the parking lot is.
Sure. So when the members from MBNA had reached out and asked about this, we were told that the city also uses it for other, so for example, other uses such as beach renourishment, or if there's different staging for events on the beach during Art Basel or other events that the cities use. And so MBNA had requested to see something that was flexible where the community could enjoy this green space in a more coordinated manner. I do believe that they've discussed that there's folks that just kind of hang out and linger around these spaces and and they don't have anywhere, there are no dog parks close to this. So the Allison Park that you had mentioned is on 65th. So about 30 blocks from this location. And it's a little far for the pet owners. And as we know, the beach walk is full of folks wanting to walk their pets or just kind of go out and enjoy it. So having a space that's north of our boundaries, which would be 65th, and potentially having one that's within our boundaries is something that we've requested. We hear that pickleball and paddleball are really important. There's also right behind MidBeach Park, what used to be Indian Beach Park and is now MidBeach Park at 46th Street. There's an incredible space that Commissioner Richardson had envisioned for it to be a space of also flexible, where we could really gather and bring folks from MidBeach area. And he had proposed having something similar to what they have in Brickell, where they have some type of markets and fairs. And then there's so much space there that the area that used to have beach volleyball courts next to the Eden Rock could potentially be paddle and pickleball, as well as an area for staging for the beach renourishment, et cetera. Since we just finished our beach renourishment for this next round, I'm wondering now that we're going into this next transition, if it's not parks, because we do bombard Jose and John with requests, who is it, or how do we as residents and as hotel representatives reach out to the city in an effective manner to better understand, is it green? Because this is the first time we've ever heard it's green space, and is it green space? Is it parks? Who do we want to engage in dialogue with to better use both of those spaces? Because it seems like pickle and paddle, if it was on this 35th to 37th lot that we're all kind of debating which one it is, that would not be as flexible, right? Once you have that established, it's less flexible. I think that they say that you can remove it if the hurricane comes, or you can remove it, but it wouldn't be as flexible as what I guess we're envisioning as a dog park. Also, where folks usually attracts folks with parking. And this is about 1.5 blocks to 2 blocks away from the parking, rather than in MidBeach Park, the parking is adjacent to the lots that we're talking about, and they're much larger lots and they're more versatile for the community. This is more of a small green space that would allow for residents and folks with pets to kind of enjoy while they're on their walk with the beach walk or nearby. Any comments before we open it up to the rest of the membership?
Yes, and I want to thank Elizabeth for her great presentation. You know, I know that this that this park would be something that the residents would enjoy very much. That you and Marie have been advocating for a while. It's not funded this year because the city manager didn't recommend it to be funded as part of this fiscal year's budget. It's recommended for fiscal year 26, and we approved for that sequencing of it, and it's going to allow for some of the other activity that's going on around the area to be completed as well. So everything is just a completed package. There's other construction going on around that area. But I'm happy to get any feedback if there is an urgency, since Elizabeth has mentioned that we can fund this sooner. I'm happy to bring forward a resolution with staff's recommendation to expedite the funding of this, because that's certainly, for me as a commissioner, it's always welcome news when the administration is willing to advance the funding of a project earlier in the fiscal years.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I do believe that our residents reached out directly to the park, and according to them, they had said that they were told it was in the fiscal year of 2024, 2025. So this is the first time we're hearing it's 2026. We can circle back with them. I'm not as concerned. What I am concerned is projects that we can really enjoy. For example, the cameras on our beach walk from 46th Street North to 53rd. We've been promised those for more than 5 years. And we were told they were in the next fiscal year, and then they got pushed, and then they got pushed, and then there was COVID. And then we've heard they're coming up until we believe they've been approved. I haven't confirmed yet, but I guess my only concern is when we do see projects being pushed out in MidBeach, we just simply see what's historically happened in MidBeach, where we don't end up getting the funding, or it doesn't end up happening, or other priorities kind of take precedence. And seeing that happen on such a critical project that impacts the safety of our residents and hotel visitors, such as cameras, I can't imagine dog parks being a great priority, or us getting it. So I guess that's my only personal, and I don't speak on behalf of the executive committee or MBNA because I haven't vetted this with them, but just personally from what we've seen in our advocacy or trying to bring projects to our community, that things do kind of, they do get rolled over. And so it's great to hear that capital budget. So commission candidate Andres Acion is on, and he is confirming that, or the security cameras for the beach walk 46 to 63rd, 1.8 million, and 63rd to 79th. And I apologize, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read.
Yeah, so 63rd to 79th is 1.295 million. And that's that came from Alina directly, that budget for the finishing of the boardwalk.
Okay, for the cameras along the beach walk.
Specifically for the cameras. That's not counting the budget to actually have somebody watch the cameras.
Right, of course. But I mean, it's been 5 years that we've been advocating for this, so it's really exciting, and been told that it was in the work. So it's great to hear that it's back in there, and until it's not a finished project, which I don't know, I'm assuming the timeline is within the next fiscal year. Do you by any chance know that, candidate Acion?
Yeah, it's there. That's for 23-24 fiscal.
But to be funded and completed, or for funding to be earmarked?
Yeah, actually, I know for a fact that the wiring is there. So it's just a matter about getting the cameras installed, because the person who actually installs it for the city is a dear friend of mine. So I know that they laid down the wiring. So it's just a matter about getting those cameras up. So it
Okay.
should happen fairly quickly as soon as they get the funds.
Thank you, and thanks for reminding us of one of the reasons why it didn't happen when we were told it was going to happen, is because they realized the infrastructure wasn't there and that they had to rewire and do some work before it got there. So going back though to the dog park, one concern is pushing it out, but I also see that maybe there's room to discuss a little more, to understand if for us to request or advocate for any item to get pushed up from the commission is a big ask, and we wouldn't do that. Or go against the city's recommendation unless we felt very strongly. And I think that, Elizabeth, we don't understand, the residents don't understand what exactly is the cost. What are the elements? You mentioned it was for large and small, that there's a certain type of fence you're recommending, but for it to be flexible, looking at the vendors that the city is currently using for this project, are they aligned with some of the sustainability goals and just kind of the vision and branding for MidBeach and what the community sees this is going near some of our best and greatest properties. We have the Addition, the Faena, the Amman, and others in this area, the Caribbean, etc. And we want to ensure that Mosaic, Trident, Atlantis, I'm not trying to leave anybody out, but we have some great properties in this area, and I just want to make sure that it that if we could we just touch base maybe in the public space committee and talk about this a little more?
Sure. I mean, if you guys want to talk about it a little bit more, we're completely open to it. I think that we do provide really nice amenities. If you guys have gone to Allison Park, I think that's a very nice park. That's the same type of thing that we're planning to install there, like a black estate picket fence, 4 feet high. We always put the chilled drinking fountains. They're like one of the nicer models that are out there. We would certainly put some of the nicer benches, trash bins, so it wouldn't, like, I guess we'd try to make it, I guess, as much to fit in with the community as possible,
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just again, trying to see if Allison Park seems like a more permanent dog park. If this
I'm sorry, it has the same situation, I guess, that you are referring to here, where that's a site that gets used for beach renourishment. So what we've done there, and I think we would do the same type of treatment here at 35th Street, is we've placed at each end of Allison Park large gates. I think they're about 20-foot size gates at both the east and west side, so that when beach renourishment does happen, the state can open up those gates. I mean, there would be destruction in the dog park. They'd be able to access the site and use it. And then once they're done with their beach renourishment activities, we go back and restore it, or there would be some kind of contractual agreement with the state to try to restore the park back and not just have it come from city funds. So that would be kind of the same approach that we would take here at 35th Street, where we would add large gates in order to provide access in case that space needs to be used for something else.
Great, and I want to be sensitive to everyone's time, and I apologize for staying so long on this item. Just one final question is,
Sure.
because this is not coming up in according to the recommendations, right? It's not coming up for a little time, and you all are swamped, and we know how much great work you all do for our community. I really appreciate you all bringing new programs to the beach as well. It's very exciting to see. There's no rendering, or, I mean, how soon can we see this and really understand the costs and the scope of the project to determine if, as an organization, we'd want to advocate to the commission to push this up or not?
Well, we don't have renderings really. I mean, we can probably put together some type of a plan, nothing professional. I mean, we're kind of limited here in the department as far as like, what type of renderings we can provide to you. But as far as the budget, in order to put it on our capital projects list, we've had to come up with a budget, and we would be requesting approximately $160,000 to get this built. And that's just, I can go through it a little bit more, but like the fencing, it's expensive. Metal prices have gone up and they fluctuate a lot. To chill drinking fountain, it's not just putting a fountain in there. You also have to bring in electrical, you have to bring in plumbing, you have to put down a small slab for it, you have to get a backflow, a cage for the backflow. There's a lot of things that go into the park that people don't realize. Just like the benches and the trash bins, those need to be surface mounted as well. So a pad would have to be brought in for that. And then just how far do you need to bring the electrical and plumbing in from the source? That also dictates the cost. So it's a lot of things that go into it, and that space doesn't have any infrastructure in it. It's just green space. I guess that's been left over. It's just there. That's always been there. So we've got to develop it,
And Marie, if I may, I worked with the neighbors in the Allison neighborhood on the creation of that Allison Park dog park. If you like, I can help liaise a meeting, facilitate a meeting with the Parks Department, our administration, and perhaps one of your working groups, if you like, where they can come back and do perhaps a more thorough dive into the vision for the park there, and we can further fine tune if you all have any further suggestions or any concerns or any other questions that need to be answered about it.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. We'd appreciate that. I think it'd be a perfect fit for public space, the one that Deborah Lake chairs, for that committee to meet. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I was very happy to. I'm very proud, by the way, of the Allison Dog Park, because the residents love it, and the Parks Department really made their dream a reality there. So Elizabeth, to your team, thank you, because I was proud to have been a part of that. I'll be happy to work with you guys as well on it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your recognition. We appreciate it.
I think you all do that very often. So thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you to the rest of the team. Thank you for being with us today.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next item for today is Miami Beach Drive. So Miami Beach Drive, as we all know, is that promenade that is adjacent to our beach walk, just behind a few of our properties. And Oscar Vasquez had been communicating as a resident from there with the properties and going over some of the proposed bollards and safety features and improvements that the city, under the leadership of Commissioner Fernandez, had put together. And so this, just wanted to remind everyone, I know it might be confusing in January when we heard from the city that it wasn't, that it was the responsibility of the condominiums and hotels along that area. Since then, that had changed, and that really was due to the advocacy of our of the leadership. And so I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Fernandez to share the updates and let folks ask any questions they might have on this item.
Thank you, and Marie, and again, this is thanks to your advocacy of the collective at MBNA and Oscar, who over time you all have raised to us the concerns about the cracks on Miami Beach Drive. You've raised to us the very valid concerns of the flooding, the severe flooding that we've seen on Miami Beach Drive, the need for other infrastructure improvements, and the frustration that while the city of Miami Beach was focusing on improving certain parts of Miami Beach Drive, we couldn't do improvements on other parts of Miami Beach Drive because it was under the understanding that it was privately owned under some agreement that took place back in the 80s or something like that. The research, MBNA did tremendous research into the legal records and into the deeds and all that. Surveys were done, and everything has been handled so that the ownership of that part of Miami Beach Drive is now back on the city of Miami Beach. I see Rodney Knowles here from our Public Works, the department that has worked closely on that. And now, since that was finally clarified, finally cleared, the city of Miami Beach is the owner of all of Miami Beach Drive from 24th Street, from where the Riviera is at, all the way to 29th Street, where the Trident Towers is at. Now you're seeing more infrastructure improvement. So the cracks, our Public Works Department has been there, going throughout different areas, looking at the cracks, fixing the cracks there. They've been looking at the issue with the flooding and what can be done. And Rodney, I hope you can expand a little bit on that, because there are certain areas where the pavement was just sinking and it was causing flooding issues there. So Public Works has been working on that, and I'll let them give an update on it. But we've also been going beyond that, looking at reinstalling bollards where they used to be and where they should be, to limit the amount of vehicles going onto Miami Beach Drive, because again, we want to preserve it as a promenade. And that's my goal, to advance this great vision you all have for this, not to be a drive, but to be a promenade, so that pedestrians can safely enjoy it with the least amount of vehicular intrusion as possible. So the city has already purchased safety bollards to put there, but we just need some more feedback from you guys of where to place them. And lastly is, what is the future master plan for this? And it's an item that I have on the city commission to discuss, putting the capital budget for future fiscal years. How do we truly create a promenade there? Look kind of what happened at Brittany Park, get some elements from there and other ways to beautify it and modernize this part of Miami Beach Drive. And the last tad bit of update that I personally want to give on this is the enhanced police presence that now we're seeing on Miami Beach Drive. On a daily basis, our police officers are going out there, they're walking Miami Beach Drive, they're engaging with the homeless individuals on Miami Beach Drive. They're offering housing. I don't know if you've seen an improvement. I personally have seen an improvement. I'm out there every morning on that front. But that's a little bit of what we've been working on as it relates to Miami Beach Drive. Many different elements. The most important one is completely under the city's completely under the city's ownership now. Repairs have been ongoing, and the most important repairs are to the flooding. And I'm gonna ask Rodney to please give you guys an update on that.
Thank you so much for that historical, before Rodney speaks, thank you so much for that historical context. I did want to recognize that Director Joe Gomez from the city has sent us a very detailed plan of 3 months, 6 months, and then after 6 to 12 months, and then 24 months and beyond. And eventually, right now, we're really just trying to address the things that are most needed along the promenade, that are safety concerns or flooding, etc. And then going into a little bit deeper, next layer of infrastructure. And then the last here is developing a master plan for that grand vision that the residents and others have to really make this an even more valued asset in our community. Rodney, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Sure. Good afternoon. Rodney Knowles, the Assistant Director for the Public Works Department. I want to take this opportunity to thank Commissioner Fernandez for his leadership on this item, and to thank MBNA for their advocacy in this area. We really appreciate it, and we want to be good partners with getting this promenade where it should be. As previously mentioned, there was some more immediate items that we were able to address, and we've made good progress on that with regard to switching out a lot of the pavers and trying to adjust the grade so that we're able to move water a bit better. It's more of a Band-Aid right now as opposed to what the larger plan is going to be, which the Commissioner alluded to, which is going to be the redevelopment of that entire area so that we're more effectively moving water and keeping that area dry as possible. We have the bollards on hand, and we're ready to install those as soon as we can coordinate and agree on a location with more specifically Triton Towers, since we're putting it on that end. And some of the more immediate flooding is localized a bit towards Club Atlantis. So we're trying to rework that area so that we can come up with a temporary solution until the larger fix is executed. Some of the pressure washing frequencies have been increased, and we're actually looking into a different cleaning solution, something that we can use to penetrate the concrete a bit better to get some of the more stubborn stains out. And there was a considerable plant infill that was executed through there, and we're working with the addition to try to coordinate what that frontage along 29th Street looks like, just getting it back to where it should be according to the approved plans that the city has.
Thank you so much, Rodney. And Triton Towers approved the MBNA communications. From our understanding, they did approve the locations, and then Club
Okay.
had some reservations, and I believe that Director Gomez's email addressed those in the email, but I just went through and saw that they were in draft form, which might be why I was confused as to you all had received this weeks ago. So I apologize. That sometimes happens when we have a collective email account. There was a question about 53rd, which is, this is not that area, but I do want to address Paul Young's concern. He put a picture in the chat. I don't know if maybe you could, if that is also Public Works, so you could address it. While we're doing this, any other questions on Miami Beach Drive from any of the other members? Okay, great. We'll keep everyone posted on that. I hope we could do some before and afters and have a nice celebration once it's all finished in I believe it's 2032 was the date that I heard. The next item for today, and Ronnie, don't leave, it's going to be the Indian Creek Drive and the pedestrian path. Go ahead.
Okay. The notice to proceed has been granted to the landscape contractor. We had a slight problem with the start of the landscape installation. We wanted to pick up where the seawall project left off and do some earthwork and grading corrections so that the path is as stable as possible and that we have the correct elevations for the finished product. That additional work has pushed the anticipated completion deadline down to about the end of December. But the good thing is that the contractor that's doing the landscape and irrigation installation is the same company that's doing the earthwork and grading to make sure that everything comes together perfectly. We do have a parcel that's outlying one of the areas. You will see that there is a black fence erected. That property owner did not grant the city an easement to install anything on that property, and they did not execute a quitclaim deed. The city is currently working, would like to work with the property owner to see if we can work out a situation or a solution that would allow us to tie the property into the larger vision.
When we had first started this, there were many properties that needed to be deeded, and it looks like the city was able to obtain several of those. And so is it correct that there's only 2 properties left? You can unmute.
That's correct.
So the 2 properties that we had, we have one that is, we have one that has the black fence on 41st, and then we have the other one that you were just referring to. Is there an update on the black fence one on 41st?
At this point, no. We have not been successful in working with the property owner to get access to that. We're working on that, and we'd like to come up with a solution because I think it takes away from the overall design to have the property as the outlier. The plan is nice, and we'd like them to be a part of that, and we're trying to work out a solution for that.
What hesitation have private owners given you about this? It's just that they want to have their docks. Can they not have their docks along Indian Creek and have the pedestrian path?
That is possible. I think the property owner has an alternate view for what they want on that property. I haven't shared that with us, but they're holding on to it and they'd like to do their own thing with it and not tie it into the city's project.
Understandable. Along the easement that the Diamonds have, the blue and green diamond across from their property, they installed a little path. It's only a block or so long, and a dock, and then they separated it by a very thin chain from the city's property, or from the right of way of a public. I'm just wondering if that's something that might be able to be replicated, since the space seems fairly large in that corner of 41st.
It's definitely worth a conversation, and we can broach a topic with them, for
Okay.
sure.
Thank you. If there's anything that we can do as an association to make phone calls to private owners, or just to speak to them as peers and as those that are interested and invested in the community as well, please let us know, and we'd be happy to reach out.
Thank you.
Esteban Porcelli, I know you're the chair of the Indian Creek Drive, and you had brought up a concern to the executive committee with the dock that's being installed. Is it Vienna dock? And I know they're a member of ours as well. But was there something that you wanted to ask technically to the city?
Yes. In regarding the pedestrian path and the landscape, we don't have so many information. I would like to get the opportunity to know more about that. Is the contract can give us more details. For example, the pedestrian path, what kind of type is going to be, what other utilities are going to be there, lights, garbage can, sitting in the area, and also to know if the people that walk around can see the Indian Creek water. Same thing from the properties across the Indian Creek Drive. Is it going to be possible to see the water? There's no obstruction with the vegetation, or trees, or whatever. We don't have too much information about. Is it possible to get more details?
The landscape, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Rodney, to interrupt. So Esteban, those are excellent questions. And honestly, the reason why I didn't ask them was because I was under the impression that this project would be implemented exactly as the community had voiced, or the input the community had given several years ago when this was brought to public meetings. There was a public process, and we all did several surveys. We did site visits. We discussed, I think the first project that was presented was 4 blocks, and we advocated, and we were told that it would be throughout the entire strip by the end of those conversations. And then the type of vegetation, the type of walkway, there was 2 different options that were given. But I remember there was so much input. And yes, every property along Indian Creek Drive was supposed to have that view of the waterway from our side of Indian Creek Drive. And so, Rodney, has anything changed since that was presented to the community?
The direction that staff was given, and I think you were at the commission meeting when it was decided that one of the options that was presented, the one that include lush vegetation and the path, and in an event that the path and the vegetation were in conflict and only one could be installed, that it would be vegetation. That was the direction that we were given, and we marched forward with that. And the design consultant created plans, construction documents, all the way to 100% that reflected the spirit of what was approved in commission. Those plans have not changed. We've had members of the public reach out to us and give suggestions on changing things in order to, to whatever their liking is. And we've been very firm about sticking to what the marching orders were from commission. So the plans have not changed. What's featured online, the construction documents are what are going to be constructed because those are the ones that were approved. And we're just trying to be consistent. And in the spirit of,
What was the,
sorry,
because I thought that when they made that decision about vegetation over walkway, that it was the reason why there was a width issue with the walkway. But I thought that it was a minimum walkway that there wasn't anywhere, even around the generators, where there wasn't a minimum walkway. Because if we start dividing the path into areas, we're going to start getting folks living in those areas and gathering in those areas and creating a public safety issue for the community. And I thought that was, from my recollection, and I apologize, I don't remember the final construction plans.
Right.
From what I remember, there wasn't anywhere I think there was a pinch point right around the, and that folks had even talked about, like, what if we jet out and get a permit from Army Corps, which back then we weren't in great standings with them, to have a dock that goes around, so they actually has a walking path that kind of goes out, jets out into the water and comes back in, if it wasn't possible. And then we were told it would be possible, that there was enough width, at least, to have minimal vegetation and a walkway. So is that no longer the case? Was it built out differently?
What was the directive from commission was that since there are pinch points, wherever there was a conflict where we could not get a minimally acceptable width of pathway and vegetation in place, that the vegetation would take precedent over, because there are some pinch points where it's just not feasible to have a walkway and vegetation. We were being very mindful that if people are going to be using this walkway, that it should be a pleasant place to walk in, and you're not walking through a green corridor, a green wall where you feel unsafe. The challenge is that we have some residents that want a complete green screen, which is not possible. And then we've had requests that it's completely open, and that's not possible too if we're planting lush landscaping to try to restore some of that shoreline that was lost during the construction. But there was, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. The pinch points that you're talking about, though, are because we have it's not generators, because I remember we moved the generator off to the public place, but some machinery or something along those areas, right?
Not necessarily. There is some of that, but there are places where we just don't have the real estate to accommodate landscaping and a path. And that was one of staff's hesitations about installing the path, because there was no way to create a continuous, uninterrupted path from 41st all the way down to 25th. But we did as much as we could, and I think the plans reflect exactly where the path is going to be installed.
Why don't we revisit that? I guess that's why folks asked to look at this and see. Just because it seems very subjective on what is vegetation and what should be, and how you could accommodate both or not. And so let's just maybe bring it back to the group. Okay, thank you. And any other comments before we move on from this item? Okay, Randy?
Sorry, Anna Marie.
Randy?
I want to ask about the Indian Creek Drive flooding mitigation project. The second question is, what about the bus stop shelters? When we gotta get?
We're gonna go to those. We'll go to those next. We're gonna wrap up this pedestrian, and then we'll talk about the bus, if that's okay. Randy, your hand is up. Could you please identify yourself and what property you're with?
Yes, it's Randy Hollingworth. I'm with 2939 Indian Creek Drive. I guess the question I have, because we've met with Rodney, is that what residents asked for a solid wall that you just said? Who wanted a solid wall of landscaping?
I don't have any names right now, but you were at the community meetings, and I'm sure that you recall from being there that we've had different opinions on what this area could look like. That was the whole point of having the community meeting, so we can get feedback from as many different people as possible. There is no way to get 100% consensus, everybody in the meeting all on the same page. So I wasn't surprised that some people wanted it to be completely open. Some wanted a complete dense vegetation. I get it.
But the
best
promise was that,
Sure, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Wasn't the whole idea to have a continuous pedestrian walkway?
It was,
Yes.
Michelle,
No.
one moment, Michelle, it was, and that's what we've advocated for as an exec committee. We're gonna let Randy finish his comments and questions, and then we'll go to you, and then to anyone else on this item, and then we'll go back to Esteban. Thank you. One moment. Randy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. As I have shown, Rodney, is that we've ended up with a solid wall, very, very, very solid wall. And I don't know anybody on the Indian Creek Drive side of the creek who wants a solid wall. Why does anybody want to block a beautiful view to the water? I don't think leaving it completely open is an option, but why would we want a solid wall? It's not going to buffer the car noise because it's the other side of the road. I don't know anybody in one of the meetings I went to that ever said, we don't want to see the water. We do not want to see the water, the canoers, the boats, people walking. So I'm just completely baffled why we have a solid wall if the residents on Indian Creek did not ask for a solid wall. And I don't know why anybody would. I'm baffled that we have a solid wall, and I can show the graphics. I think, Rodney, you've seen, we have a solid wall of landscaping 35 feet tall, right down to the ground. There is no visibility to the water.
Where the
It's not
extent of the
it's not
solid
a
wall?
preference.
There isn't a solid wall throughout the entire project. That's incorrect.
There's certainly a solid wall on very specific projects viewed from across the creek. I've shown that. In front of our building is a solid wall. In front of the building that they're going to build at the corner of 29th and Indian Creek, which is under development, is also a solid wall. So I don't,
Randy, could you send us pictures from your
Yes,
property?
I have. Esteban has the full PowerPoint presentation, but I'd be happy to share the full presentation.
If Esteban has it, then we should have it.
Yes.
We always were under the impression that we were going to be able to see the water. I think that was said
No.
many times at the meeting. So I would be surprised that there would be a wall. I apologize. I don't live on
There is no continuous wall on the project.
I would love to meet with the neighborhood association and show you the graphics. I'm a landscape architect with a very well-known local firm. I'd be happy to show you what the effect of this landscaping is. And it's virtually a 25-foot green wall of landscaping. We will not see the water from our condominium. Even from the 5th floor, you won't see it.
Okay, let's.
Is that throughout the whole project or from a specific location?
Well, I mean,
Our
I think
whole building?
Landscape plans are available online, and the commission directive I can share with the group also, which drove the design.
Right, I know, Rodney, I think what happens is sometimes the commission, just like residents, we approve things, residents, I'm not on the commission, but I'm saying this, when we approve things, for example, the beach walk, when someone showed us a plan with palm trees or with trees on it, we assumed they would be at the very edge of the beach walk, would not take up the beach walk, not like in this kind of odd, off-centered or even centered. Nobody thought that they were going to have like palm trees in their faces as they were walking down the beach walk. Now, when the beach walk was constructed, what did we have? We had palm trees popping up all over the place, and then they ended up putting them in the middle because that was the least worst of the rest for the rest of the beach walk, and it still seems odd. And so I think that sometimes happens, right? When you implement projects on plans for folks. I mean, Randy sounds like he's much more he has a lot more technical expertise to be able to interpret plans, but for the layman folks such as myself, when we look at plans and you say, yeah, that makes sense, having a tree on the off sides of a beach walk, and then when it gets implemented, it's in the middle, this sounds similar, right? It sounds right to have vegetation. You don't want it to be just a bare, another sidewalk along a sidewalk, right? A path along the sidewalk. You want there to be vegetation, but when you implement something and you're blocking the view and folks purchased properties along water view, you're going to expect to have water view, right? That's one of the that impacts our property values. And that, one of the reasons why we pay the taxes we pay and we choose to live in the city we choose is because we have water view. And so, sometimes it's just an implementation thing that in concept or in spirit, commission, I see it all the time. Elected officials have the best intentions, and in spirit, they make the right decisions. But when it's implemented, and many years after that decision was made, I remember Mark Samuelin walking out there with us and bringing this to the committee. And the first vote was actually to vote for only a 4-block pedestrian walk, and the rest was just vegetation covering everything. And it wasn't until we really started kind of dissecting that and looking at what that looks like and understanding what the potential impacts are. So Randy, we certainly would welcome a more formal presentation on what the potential impacts are. And I think that the best place to do that is going to be at a committee meeting, to not take up time here at these monthly meetings, but at a Indian Creek working group meeting. We can have Esteban set that up, invite all the members, invite the city, invite anybody who would like to attend, and then bring back those recommendations from that meeting to this monthly meeting, which will be November 1st. And that is the last meeting of the year. So it's really important that we bring those meetings here. Now, Michelle, you had a comment, and then we can go and move on from this. Thank you, Michelle.
I think you're 100% correct, and Randy's 100% correct too. The whole idea of the Indian Creek is to have another continuous walkway, pedestrian walkway, and when people are walking, they want to see water. So whoever is in charge of the overall look of the entire project should see that we have a continuous walkway, pathway that is safe, and they're seeing water. I mean, that's the whole idea of beautifying Miami Beach.
Thank you, Michelle. It's a great point. Any other comments from any of our, and Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, thank you for joining us at tonight's meeting. Any other comments on this item for the pedestrian walkway before we move on?
And Marie, I just, I'm going to ask Rodney and our staff to brief me on this, because my challenge with this is I go by there every single day, as you know. This is an area where we cannot have a wall or any blockage of view of the waterway, not just for aesthetics, but for safety purposes. Because as it is right now, there's some vegetation that's growing there a little bit, or even there was a period of time when the grass was just overgrown, like completely overgrown. It had been months since anyone had gone there, cut the grass. You know what ended up happening? There were homeless people sleeping on the seawall. If we have any type of wall there, we're going to have a big problem there, a big septic problem there of the police and the community not being able to see through there. And I get that this was a commission directive, but that commission directive was 4 years ago. And I was not serving at the city commission then. And I want you all to know that I brought forward a resolution that was adopted already by the city commission that says when these capital programs get adopted so many years ago, they need to be re-reviewed every 3 years, because the communities change and the elected officials change, and these are your tax dollars that we're putting into this. And so, Rodney, let's have a meeting about this, please. Please brief me on this, because I'm hearing concerns from the residents about what's being implemented there. And if we need to make any change, I want to make sure we do it, because having a wall there, it's just not going to work there. It's going to create an unsafe situation from my perspective. And let's just get ahead of it.
And we 100% agree. That was the main reason why we really pushed for the commission to consider a continuous walkway, because that will happen. And regardless of where your property is at, no matter how much you think vegetation is more beautiful, it is simply going to attract folks to want to live along the water. So thank you. One more item on Indian Creek was the bus stop. So we understand there was a temporary bus stop that was placed on Indian Creek. It did not follow what was brought to the community on what our bus stops will look like throughout the city, but it was temporary because of the heat and just to kind of mitigate some of the negative impacts of having to stand out there without the correct bus stop. Is there an update on that? Do we have, is that Rodney, is that part yours? Is that transportation? Do we have O'Neill or Jose or anyone else on the call that can speak to that? And if, Esteban, is there anything else you want to add to that before they speak?
Yes, we know that they are working with a new bus stop for the area, for the in between 26th and 41st. The new bus stop that was built during this project. And we need more information now to see how it's moving.
Okay. I apologize. Transportation would typically pick up this one, but I don't see anyone from that department on the meeting list at this time.
We'll invite them to the working group. And so we'll maybe, and if it's okay with Randy and Esteban, that I say, but maybe as, you know, we can add it to as an agenda item to that working group. We might just need to have a working group meeting this month. Esteban.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. It's no problem.
Thank you so much.
I apologize.
Moving on to our last item for today's meeting, our last main item before we open the floor. And again, I just want to welcome Commissioner Kristen Rosen Gonzalez. Are you with us? Okay. And anyone else who might want to jump in and speak, if I've missed you, please do jump in.
Anna Maria,
Sorry, I'm here. I just couldn't figure out how to unmute on my cell phone because I'm a digital immigrant and not native. I called in because I was concerned about the dog park on Collins Avenue. I know I missed it, but whatever you need, you know, I can't say anything in front of Alex, but I guess you can brief me later because I know a lot of people want that dog park.
Sure. Yes. And we've heard that others in the city have recommended it for other uses. So we'll be happy to share the clip and we'll follow up with you, Commissioner, directly and share what we've received from community members. We have not heard from any of our members that they want it to be for any other use than a dog park, but we did hear from the city today that there's some other plans. And so right now it's budgeted for 2026. So we'll brief you afterwards on that. So thank you though for joining and thank you for your interest in that item. We have one more other item today, which also sounds like
Ana Maria, I have another question about the Indian Creek flooding mitigation project. We have already the seawall that protect us from 25 to 41st. My question is, what's happened with the seawall south of 25th and north of 41st? Because it's open.
Rodney, are you still with us?
I'm still here. That is part of future phases. I don't have that information with me right now, but I can definitely follow up on that and have that shared with your group.
Great. So we'll share at the
south of 25th and north of 41st, right?
So the agenda for the upcoming Indian Creek working group is going to be 1, landscape. We'll have a presentation from Randy. We'll discuss it with the community, with the stakeholders from the city, and come up with recommendations. 2, it's going to be the bus stops. We'll have transportation there to discuss what is the timeline, why do things look the way they do, what's going on, why does it not look like the way the community had said, etc. 3 was the bike lane, the cyclists that we were promised ages ago, and now the poles are all broken and it looks very odd on the road. Transportation could also address that. Then back to Public Works, they're going to present on the south of the remaining of the seawall, and that's going to be a last item as an informative item, and then potentially we could discuss it at an upcoming meeting after that, since I do think that those meetings are shorter and they're very action oriented, so we'll just leave it as an information item. Is that okay, Esteban? Great, thumbs up. Thank you so much. We're moving on to the final item. Michelle, any other comment before we move on?
I just want to say what Esteban was talking about when you're saying it's north of 41st Street. There's actually a piece south of 41st Street that's not yet completed. There's like a fence around it where people go fishing there. So is that ever going to be completed? Is that what he's talking about?
Talking about from this place to north to the bridge. Yes,
Okay.
it's open. It's still open.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the same piece I saw. So just south of 41st Street, there's a piece open. There's a fence there, chain link fence, and people are fishing there.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
when you cross the bridge, when there's a, where, near the, where you go to the bus stop.
Exactly.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the last item for today is, and thank you, Michelle, for that clarification. The last item for today are our properties that were there. And I did see candidate Marcela Novella here earlier. Are you still with us? I see you.
I'm
listening.
here. I'm
Hi.
sorry. I'm sorry.
So
I don't
at
have-
our candidate forum
I have to-
last month, so many months ago, Justin Jacobs, our treasurer, and Collins South Working Group Chair, had mentioned he had brought and has brought several items or properties to our attention that don't look like they're being kept with the branding and with the safety and health, and they look a little slummy in our areas. And so we had reached out to code and we had reached out to building, and they came and they spoke about the structures and some violations that were undergoing. But basically, if the buildings were ugly, there was nothing we could do unless they were a safety hazard. But we just wanted to, we were talking about kind of upkeep, and then through the many projects that MBNA advocates for, that kind of has kind of like was placed on a back burner, and we hadn't visited it, especially because many of the projects are what they call disaster capitalism, that during a disaster, a natural occurring event, that many times in our natural market in the US, properties are purchased or things are privatized, and there's new investments coming in. And we certainly saw that during COVID. And so MBNA had hadn't really brought those items back up. And then what we heard at the candidate forum was a very strong statement made by yourself. And MBNA's executive board had convened, and I know you and I spoke about it, and we were just kind of digesting your thoughts and your perception, being someone who resides on the other side of the Indian Creek waterway of where we live, and the properties where Esteban, Randy, and others on this call live. And so there was concerns that there's certain properties in the Indian Creek area from 24th to 41st and Collins that are harboring criminals, or there's illegal behavior happening, it's unsafe. There's also properties that we see that are boarded up, and that there's code violation, or just looks like there would be code violations, not that we know, but it just looks like it doesn't look right? It doesn't match with the rest of the community. And so we had invited police today and code. I believe Kevin Pulido, you might be able to update us on who's here. But it was brought to us really from, just let you know, we listened to the candidate forum, we listened to our candidates, we listened to the concerns that they had, and we're following up on this item. And this is a very much an open discussion. That's why I left it for the last item for today's meeting. It's because there's something we need to do, and we know we've needed to do it, but it was before COVID, and then during COVID, it's just kind of everything's flipping hands. And you know, where are we as a community, and what do we want our community to look like, and what kind of properties do we want our community to have, and to in the kind of environment we want it to foster and encourage throughout the MidBeach area. I'm going to Marcella, if you'd like to make a quick comment, and then I'm going to move to the city. After the city, I'll have the executive board ask questions, and then we'll open it up to the community. Marcella?
Okay, so this part, I have the flu, so I'm a little bit groggy, but I spoke to Chief Wayne Jones about it. I've spoken to lots of people about this property. Apparently this property that we were discussing specifically has been a problem property for 25 years. So it's amazing that these properties get to live in this state for so long, because they really do harbor the wrong sort of element, especially since we're in a point where we are having a surge in homelessness and a lot of mentally ill, a lot of more drug dealing in all parts of Miami Beach, not just MidBeach. I mean, pretty much every part of Miami Beach is dealing with these same issues. So I think that, you know, we just have to keep pushing on, and we have to keep making this an issue. We can't let it go to bed, because I mean, just around the corner, a lot of people live. We have the Faina around the corner, and having these properties are problematic, right? We need to put more pressure on the city to either enforce code or, you know, do what's best for the residents and the tourists who are visiting. So anything I can do to support your efforts and continue this push to resolve these buildings, which are clearly breaking code. This particular Bellamar has broken windows. You walk by it, it smells like urine and feces, and it's just not what we deserve for this neighborhood.
Thank you so much, Marcella. I said city and police, but I see others privately messaging me, so I apologize. I'm going to flip that. I know that's not a good facilitator, but I apologize. I'm going to flip the order. So I just want to open it up to board members first. Esteban, did you have a comment?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Any other comments from the community at this moment? Okay, so going back to the city, Kevin, could you please introduce who's here from the city?
Sure. So good evening. My name is Kevin Polito, Neighborhood Affairs Director. Thanks so much for having us. We have Tom Curator. Tom is our Assistant Director of Code Compliance. And of course, joining you in every meeting, Captain Greg Baldwin. Captain Baldwin is the area captain for your area and for MidBeach specifically. You should all know Captain Baldwin well. On the police side, we always maintain an open dialogue of communication. And if there's any matters throughout MidBeach, I know we have a specific area in MidBeach, east of Indian Creek, but we always do bring that to your attention. So I'll turn it over to Tom. Maybe if you could walk through. I know we were talking about some random items from 41st down to about 25th Street. 24th Street, excuse me. So I'll go to you first, Tom, and then we'll go to Captain Baldwin.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Anna Marie, thanks for inviting me, as always.
Hi, Tom. Great to see you.
You too. Good to see you today.
You shaved the beard? Did you remove?
Yeah, I got rid of the beard. What I look about? I look 29 now.
Yeah, I thought it was your son that was joining us.
Oh, you're too sweet. So that means you won't beat me up too much now.
I'll go easy on you. Go ahead.
Go easy on me. All right. Yeah, just since last year, since October of last year, just from 24th Street, from 41st Street South, we actually had 381 calls to service, and we gave 210 violations out. That's just in that area. Most of the violations for property maintenance, as you know, we do sweeps of the boardwalk for the overgrown landscaping on the boardwalk, and also for the addresses. You know, the new ordinance that was, I think, passed maybe a little over a year ago. You have to have addresses now on the back of the buildings. So we're getting compliance to that. You know, it rains a lot. And
so, Tom, sorry to interrupt, but aside from encroachment and aside from not following that new regulation, because what we're seeing is like broken windows and doors and other things that look a little structural. Is that you or is that building?
Well, mostly the property maintenance side, that's one of our high points. It could be us, it could be buildings. Like with the Belmore, you know, it's two properties there. It's 230, I guess. What is it? 220, 31st, and 230. Yeah, 220 and 230. There's two folios there. We did give it a violation because now, you know, it's vacant right now. I was there actually maybe a couple of weeks ago in the morning. There was nobody in there, nobody hanging out there. But we did give a violation because it's a construction site. So we gave a violation that needs a construction fence put around it. And with the construction fence, that should stop people from coming in there and loitering. There's a few building violations. I don't really have too much on the building violations. In addition, we gave it for, you know, the drainage and stuff and the sediment. That's our part. As far as the boarding up, well, we work with buildings for the boarded up. If any windows, we usually get it boarded up. Has to be painted, you know, the color, a certain color on that also. So that's our part of it. Some of it could be building part of it. But, you know, the property maintenance as far as the landscaping comes with us. Broken windows would come with us. It just depends on where it is. So we work, you know, hand in hand with building on that part of it.
Thank you so much, Tom. You really have narrowed in on that one property. Can you talk a little more in general? So you mentioned there was 300 violations. That doesn't sound like a lot. One time you came to our meeting about 1.5 years ago, and you talked about over 1,000 violations in our area. And since this is half of the area, the other half is 41st to 63rd. Hearing 300 seems very that it doesn't seem like there's a real, that you all are seeing it as a real issue, or it's not something serious, or at least it's not being reported, or what, I'm having a hard time seeing the picture, or kind of getting the picture.
Most of them are for property maintenance. We have some graffiti, you know, in property maintenance. I said that's from 24th Street. It's from 41st Street south to 24th. So that's just in that one little area, and that's from October 1st of last year till September of this year. And they're mostly a lot of them are business tax receipts, you know, business on public property, short-term rentals, resort taxes. So there's a lot in that one part. We're seeing a lot mostly with the property maintenance. That's the overgrown, you know, and also the condition of some of the buildings. I know you have a building on the Indian Creek. There's a few on Indian Creek. One put a fence up, and the other one I think put a fence also. That was I think 3003 or something like that, which we were getting a lot of graffiti on that at one time, and that was an eyesore. And there was one down a little further, which is an eyesore. So I always tell people, you know, call the 305-604 city number. You know, it's easier doing that when it happens, you know, right away. We could dispatch, because a lot of time with the emails, you know, the emails get filtered to us if they go into the eGov. So I would say just call it 305-604 city number. We'll get out there. And as always, I always like to take walks around. I'm always out in the field. So if you have Anna Marie, if you want to take a walk sometime, you know, let me know, and we're totally up to it.
I think site visits are always a favorite of MBNA. I think we really get a feel for things when we're out there. I think it also brings the seriousness to the issue. So Tom, let's think about that. One of the actions could potentially be, before this meeting when we were talking about with the executive board in discussion, was to do an inventory of the properties and really be able to pinpoint and have kind of a map of properties that we would like to see have better maintenance or abide by some of the regulations in the city. What about in terms of safety, Captain Baldwin? When we talk about safety, one of the issues that MBNA has historically had previously was that we didn't have enough police officers, and that the police officers for the MidBeach area are shared from Alton Road all the way down to Collins, and that we didn't have our area is so much more dense, and there's very different issues in living in multi-unit housing than there are living in residential housing. There are some things that we all share as a community, but there are very specific issues that we felt we required. The safety is different, right? And so in a more urban context. And so what are you seeing from a police standpoint? What about reports? Have you seen an increase in reports? What about these specific properties, et cetera?
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie. And I just want to go back real quick to, I know that Commissioner Fernandez signed off, but I wanted to thank him for noticing our efforts on Miami Beach Drive and the homeless, because we've really cracked down on that. And Patricia, I see, is on the Zoom call, has really held our feet to the fire. But we've concentrated on that Miami Beach Drive, 24th to 29th Street. And I think we've made a real dent in that as far as the homeless. We've offered a lot of services. We've made some placements. We've developed a comprehensive homeless outreach team where we take different departments from the city. We hit the area. You may have seen the convoy going down. A lot of times they're in Loomis Park, but they do go up to 29th Street as well. So they've done a fantastic job. Going on to
but now with the new trees, you can just like walk down a couple of blocks, because you're gonna have, if they end up putting all those trees on Indian Creek Drive, you're gonna have another hot spot real soon.
Well, that's where we adapt, and we overcome.
Or we could prevent it from happening in the first place, right? Like,
well, if they build the trees, we'll be there to, or if they put the trees up, you don't build them. If we put the trees up, we'll be there to address. If they don't, fantastic. But as far as the Bellamore, I have to say that probably one of the greatest days of my career is when I heard Tom say that it's vacant, because I've been here 30 years, and starting from when I was a rookie, that's been a thorn in my side. It's always been a problem. Of late, we haven't gotten a lot of calls there. In fact, I had sort of let it drift to the back, but I was at a 41st Street committee meeting, and they brought it up specifically. So Officer Hazi's been putting that on his regular route. I've had the officers directed to that area to keep an eye on it. I know that I have not gotten
41st Committee, the Blue Ribbon Committee brought it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they all live in the area. I mean, they all live in.
Yeah, but I just seem
that was Henry. That was me, because I'm on that committee.
Okay, I mean, yeah, it just seems like an odd place to bring it up, because it's the mayor's committee for Blue Ribbon, for the 41st.
That's okay
For all of us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everyone's residents of MidBeach. You drive around, you might not be there all the time, but you see these buildings and these issues, and when they bring it up, and when I'm there, they bring it up. Marcel brought it up to me. But so we've been addressing it with a directed patrol. We haven't really had a lot of issues there specifically, especially since it's vacant. As Tom said, his guys, he's been in there. There haven't been any people there. I know they go in there, they take advantage of the dark, but when we find them, we address it. But really, MBNA, yes, it's more dense, but a lot of the problems that we see, a lot of the reports we get from the area are thefts. I mean, just off the top, not top of my head, but I pulled it up. Since September 1st, we had 74 major crime cases in MBNA. So that's all the way from 63rd down to 24th. 51 of those were thefts. So, and of that, very few were not in a building's footprint. So those are not things that we can patrol and address. There were some beach thefts, but the vast majority of the things that happen at MBNA are happening in the buildings.
Or the one, I apologize.
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
Vast majority of things that are being reported are in the buildings, but not
Well,
necessarily the things that are
that's
happening.
true.
What's
But that,
happening
well,
on our Indian Creek waterways, what's happening in the commercialization of boats and yachts, hitting up the docks, and what's happening on the streets, what happens on our beach walks, what happens on our beach. So much of that doesn't get reported, which has always been an issue for us. I mean, the transactions that we see on 53rd Street at the park, there just seems to be an uptake of awkward, uncomfortable and odd behaviors and transactions that are happening in MidBeach. And so I think that what's being reported is what's happening inside those buildings for whatever reason. But I do believe as a resident that walks this area, there's a lot that doesn't get reported.
okay, but as a police department, we rely on people notifying us. So odd behaviors, transactions that you're witnessing, we can't be everywhere. As I've said before, we have 6 officers, the 41st Street beat officer for MidBeach. So unless we get a call, a notification that it's going on, we're not everywhere. And frankly, when bad guys see a police car, they don't do that on behavior most of the time. So we rely on the community to report it to us. And that's why when I go through these reports and the stats, that's how we do it. Now, I can, and I've said it before, I can give you stats until we're blue in the face. That'll say one thing, but the goal really is to make it so you guys feel safe walking down the beach walk, walking down the street, walking on Indian Creek. And so that's the goal. So what we can do to help you achieve that and help us achieve that for you is a different thing altogether. That's why we do the directed patrols. That's why we've hit Miami Beach Drive for the homeless issues, and we've offered a lot of services. So,
Baldwin, do you see any other properties that are of issues from 24th to 41st?
I don't have any specific issues that we're getting reference these. I mean, we get from time to time, we get the call of someone in a boarded up building, someone on a property. We'll go and we address it, and on a as needed basis. If there's one that's a particular problem, the sergeants or lieutenants will note that, and they'll direct the officers to the area. They'll have them conduct a watch order in the area, have them check it more often. But really specifically, nothing's popped up on my radar as far as from a police standpoint on most of these buildings that have been boarded up or unsightly.
And Tom, have you seen any other properties that have a large number of violations in that area, or a cluster of violations?
Trying to get back on. No, like I said before, the one like the one on Indian Creek that used to get graffiti on the corner there, and they put a fence around that one and the other one. So not really, but I'll check. And you have to realize too, a lot of cases, a lot of these properties also maybe in some phase, like what we're going to do with the fence. If they don't put it up, we're going to take them to special magistrate, and a special magistrate can, impose a fine. So that'll help maybe move it along a little with that. And also, there may be some building violations that are in the process of something being done. So just because the building looks like that, there may be in the process of something being done with it, whether it's unsafe structure or I don't know, because I can't speak for buildings, but, Other than that, nothing, with us specific.
I would
other
like,
than Belmont.
I would like to say something if you don't mind, Tom. So, but I walked by the Bellamar just a couple days ago and I took some pictures. And, all the doors are open. There's clearly people hanging out in there. I saw it myself. I mean, there's nothing stopping them from getting in there. The doors are wide open. There's even chairs out in front where people sit. I mean, it's clearly not vacated. So I just, and as, Officer Baldwin said, this has been a problem property for a really long time. So what is the plan?
Well, the plan is we gave violations for the fence. Hopefully the fence will go through, they'll put a fence up for now while it's under construction, and we'll keep monitoring like we do with other buildings. But as far as the trespassing will be a police issue. We would do for the code issues. If the board has to be boarded up, we work with buildings and get their contractor to board it up on our end.
Okay, so then Captain Baldwin, Tom just passed the ball to you. What is the plan?
Well, and just to jump in, I think so we understand the process. What Tom is saying, they have issued a violation for the fence. Now the fence will go up. And as part of that violation, as part of having a now construction site, they need to keep it secure. So Tom and the building department will have the ability to cite them and ensure that it is secured, not just the fence. If the fence is broken at any point, they need to repair the fence. If the windows will need to be boarded, it needs to be properly secured. And the building department has other avenues to cite if it is not secured. Of course, PD, as Captain Baldwin mentioned, they do have watch orders and they understand which properties need special attention, and all the area officers are going to know that. So that's kind of what the process is going forward. They got the violation. The fence should be going up. When the fence is going up, it needs to be secured. If they fail to do any of those things, now we're going to come back and we're going to ensure that there is action taken, whether it's the building department, then it could get escalated to special magistrate, and the building department has another avenue to escalate this to Miami-Dade County Board of Unsafe Structures, where they could eventually issue a demolition permit if they felt so.
And that's the problem, that eventually it makes it to unsafe structures. And that's where it becomes business for some of these property owners to leave their property in a neglectful manner to then make it to the unsafe structures board. But I'm glad we're having this conversation. You just explained this, Kevin, because it is extremely frustrating, especially for me as an elected official. For Marcella, I'm sure that you're seeing this as someone that aspires to be an elected official. Our code enforcement goes out there. Our code enforcement issues a citation. You would think that the moment someone gets a violation, that they would react to it. They don't care. They don't care that we issue the violation. And while the hope is that that they're respectful, decent property owners, responsible property owners, and now they get a violation and would have some sort of pride for their property and put up a fence and do what they have to do to avoid these squatters from going in there, they just ignore it. And then they go to special master because that's the next step in the process. And the special master will start to get them fines and that type of stuff. And for them, they don't care. They just keep on paying these fines. I'm going to ask Captain Baldwin. Let's do a walkthrough of the area together with code, because I think there's things to be seen. I've seen a lot of buildings there that are just not up to par. You go down a side street by side street, you have abandoned construction sites, you have buildings that clearly have even leakage issues where you see all sorts of, even times sewage. I've seen sewage just coming out of some buildings and going into the drains and other issues. Let's do a thorough walkthrough of the area. Let's just flood the area and let's identify which are the problem buildings. And I commit to exerting whatever ability I have as an elected official to reach out to these property owners and see what they need from us as a city more than just a violation. Maybe the stick is not the solution. Maybe the carrot is the solution. But for me, the most frustrating thing is it's not just happening here, it happens in other areas of our city. Irresponsible property owners who don't care. Code goes out there, they get the violation, they ignore the violation, they go to special master, they ignore the fines of the special master. And so I will walk the area with code, and anyone from MBNA that wants to join us, I will let you guys know when we're doing it. So that if we
Said that
need to-
earlier that we wanted to do a site visit with them, so that would be great, Commissioner. I think it's very much along the lines of what we were requesting a little bit ago. There was that one other property on 36 and 27 on Collins. We just put in the chat, but there are several properties, and so it's amazing to us to hear that the police don't have a lot of reports or that code violation, aside from a couple properties being asked to put up a fence. There's not real concern. And so, but it's good to hear that you perceive it, because we perceive it as residents.
And also, if any of these have development approval, guys, if we have approved development agreements through the planning board, through the historic preservation board, and they have not gotten their building permits, and they have not moved forward with their plans, I think we need to start having a conversation on how we can legally revoke those approvals if they're leaving their properties in the abandoned conditions that they're in. So offline, let's circle back so that we can also engage the city attorney's office and see what muscles we can flex as it relates to that, because that's authority that we have.
Thank you. That sounds like a real action plan. So one was the site visit and just kind of developing that inventory, collecting additional information, pictures and videos, and just kind of comparing that with what the city has on file, and then figuring out legally or other measures that could be taken to help motivate these properties to come up to par and to be part of our community. We've discussed a lot of great items today. The four main ones, again, were that dog park, Indian Creek path, the follow-up that we're going to have at Indian Creek working group meeting to talk about the pedestrian path, the bus stops, the protected bike lane, the properties along this area that are in despair, and also the Miami Beach Drive and all the progress. We're going to send some communication to all of our members. If you're interested in getting more involved or being part of any of these work groups or meetings, please reach out to us directly. I did see a couple of comments in the chat about folks mentioning, similar to the comments that the commissioner has said, that really it doesn't affect them, that the fine is not going to do anything. And so what can we really do to get to the root of this? It's been something that's been brought up very briefly. I think the reason why MBNA hasn't addressed this, honestly, I know my executive board is going to kill me, but we don't have a working group. And unless we have people that are devoted and focused on an issue, it's very hard for a volunteer group to make any progress on action items. And so I'll bring that back to executive board and see if any of our board members would be willing to lead this charge. And if you're interested in serving on our board of directors, we do have a condominium seat open right now. And so if you live in a condominium and you're part of their board of directors, or your board of directors would be willing to allow you to serve on our board of directors, there is a condominium seat, and you could fill it as soon as we receive that nomination and the executive board goes through the vetting process. So I want to thank everybody for joining today's MBNA meeting. Again, I'm Ana Marie Ferreira Melo, and we'll be following up. We're going to save this chat. I see so much great information coming through right now. We'll be following up with a video in our next meetings on November 1st. Thank you, everyone. And please remember to register to vote in the next week and the next few days. And please, please, please go out and start early voting the 23rd of October, I believe. And then, of course, in November for the elections. We need everyone to vote. We're happy to take people, bus people from your property. We can walk them, we can take them. Just please, please vote, because then all these issues that we're working on here in MBNA can't happen unless we have the right folks in the right positions. So please go out there and vote. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. I'm going to stop recording and stay on for any additional conversations.